There is a fundamental difference between studying well occasionally and maintaining high academic performance consistently. Most people live in the first scenario. Some days are productive. Others are unproductive. Performance fluctuates. And this instability creates frustration, insecurity, and a constant feeling of falling short of one's potential. Meanwhile, there is a smaller group of students who maintain high performance almost all the time. They deliver above-average results, learn faster, and handle pressure better. And the most important thing, they don't seem to suffer from it anymore. High performance has become something normal. This doesn't happen because these people are more intelligent or were born with extreme discipline. It happens because their brains have been conditioned to seek high performance as a reward. For them, performing well is not just an obligation. It is something that generates internal satisfaction, a sense of control, and identity. The common mistake is thinking that high academic performance comes from constant pressure, fear of failure, or comparison. These factors may push results in the short term, but they destroy consistency. The brain does not sustain high performance when it is associated only with pressure. In this video, you will understand how to trick your brain into becoming addicted to high academic performance. Making high performance, studying deeply, and maintaining discipline stop being isolated efforts and become the natural standard. It's not about studying more hours. It's about making the brain want to maintain a high level of performance every day, using reward, progress, identity, and mental control. If you want to break the cycle of ups and downs and turn academic performance into something constant, subscribe to the channel now. Here, the focus is on deep productivity, study psychology, and scientific methods to build real and sustainable performance. When the brain starts to seek high performance, the game changes completely. To get the brain addicted to high academic performance, it is necessary to understand why most people cannot maintain this level of output for long. The brain does not reject high performance. It rejects the emotional cost that usually comes with it. Anxiety, fear of making mistakes, constant pressure, and the feeling of never being enough create a negative association with performing well. When high performance is linked only to pressure and punishment, the brain does respond in the short term. But then it becomes exhausted. He starts to conserve energy, reduces focus, and seeks relief in distractions. Performance declines not due to lack of ability, but for self-protection. Another common mistake is treating performance as an isolated event. Studying a lot in 1 week, performing well on an exam, and then completely relaxing. This irregular pattern confuses the brain. He does not learn to associate high performance with something predictable and controllable. He learns to associate with peaks of effort followed by a drop. The brain prefers consistency over intensity. It responds better to a sustainable high level than to occasional bursts of performance. To create a high-performance addiction, performance needs to be frequent, measurable, and internally rewarded. When you start to realize that performing well generates a sense of mastery, clarity, and control, the brain changes its stance. He stops seeing performance as a threat and starts seeing it as an advantage. Before talking about practical techniques, it is essential to correct this mental foundation. The first practical move to condition the brain for high academic performance is to change the way performance is measured internally. Most people only feel rewarded when the final result appears. High grades, approval, external recognition. The problem is that this happens rarely. For the brain, the wait is too long. The brain needs frequent signals that it is doing well. Without this, it loses interest and reduces effort. That's why high-performing students do not measure success solely by the final result. They measure by the daily standard of execution. Completed sessions, well-executed blocks, sustained focus. The brain learns that performing well today is already a victory. When you start to associate high performance with mental clarity and a sense of control, something changes. Studying well stops being just a means to a distant end and becomes a rewarding experience in itself. This generates spontaneous repetition. Another important adjustment is to make performance visible. Not to compare with others, but to show progress to your own brain. Recording productive sessions, tracking consistency, and noticing progress creates a powerful reinforcement cycle. The brain likes concrete evidence. Moreover, it is essential to reduce the emotional weight of the mistake. Those who seek high performance sustainably understand that making mistakes is part of the process. The error does not break the system. It adjusts the system. When the brain realizes that failure does not result in extreme punishment, it takes more risks and learns faster. After redefining how the brain perceives reward and success, the next step to getting it addicted to high academic performance is to create a structure that makes performance predictable. The brain does not sustain high levels of performance in chaotic environments. It needs a clear routine to operate efficiently. Most students depend on their mood of the day. When it is in a good mood, it performs. When he's not, he improvises or postpones. This pattern creates instability. The brain never knows when it will be demanded and responds by conserving energy. Those who maintain high performance create fixed execution blocks. Does not negotiate with the moment. Just execute. Routine is not imprisonment. It's cognitive liberation. When the schedule, location, and type of task are already defined, the brain doesn't waste energy deciding. All that energy is left for focus and performance. That's how performance increases without increasing perceived effort. Another essential point is to clearly separate execution from evaluation. During the study, the focus is on doing it well. Evaluating results, adjusting strategies, and reflecting happens later. Mixing pressure with execution generates anxiety and breaks focus. The brain does not learn well under constant judgment. With clear structure, the brain begins to anticipate the state of performance. He enters deep focus faster because he recognizes the pattern. The resistance decreases. Performance stabilizes. It is at this moment that high performance stops being a rare event and becomes routine. Maintaining high academic performance consistently requires pace control. The most common mistake is trying to perform at maximum capacity every day, as if the brain could operate at full intensity without consequences. This works for a while, but it leads to mental saturation. The brain starts to associate high performance with wear and tear and begins to resist. Sustainable performance works in waves. There are days of greater intensity and days of consolidation. Those who understand this do not blame themselves for not being at their peak all the time. Adjusts the pace without abandoning consistency. The brain responds better when it knows that the effort varies, but never disappears. Another essential point is learning to end at the right moment. Stopping when there is still energy creates a positive memory of the effort. The brain learns that performing well does not mean exhausting oneself completely. This increases the willingness for the next block and maintains long-term interest. High performance also requires strategic breaks. Short and conscious breaks allow the brain to consolidate information and recover resources. They are not escapes, they are part of the system. Ignoring breaks leads to a drop in focus and a reduction in quality. When the rhythm is well adjusted, something important happens. High performance stops being burdensome. It becomes natural. The brain enters deep focus faster and stays there longer without excessive effort. If this content makes sense to you, take a moment to like the video now. This helps the channel grow and shows that this type of science-based approach really works. In the next step, we will talk about the mistakes and pitfalls that break high performance even when the method is good. Even with routine, rhythm, and good intentions, many people break high performance due to silent errors that go unnoticed. The first one is mixing identity with results. When performance drops in a day, the person starts to see themselves as incapable. This association is dangerous. The brain interprets this as a threat and starts to avoid effort to protect itself. Another common mistake is using comparison as fuel. Comparing grades, learning speed, or study load can even generate a momentary boost, but in the long run, it creates anxiety and instability. The brain performs better when it competes with itself, not when it lives under constant judgment. There is also the habit of accumulating difficult tasks without clarity of priority. When everything seems important, the brain becomes overloaded. He doesn't know where to start and responds by postponing. High performance requires selective focus. Do fewer things, but do them better. Ignoring basic signals from the body is another powerful saboteur. Lack of sleep, irregular eating, and a sedentary lifestyle drastically reduce cognitive capacity. No mental method compensates for a disorganized physical system. The brain needs a biological basis to sustain high performance. Another subtle mistake is trying to maintain high performance without renewing the challenge. When everything becomes a mechanical repetition, interest wanes. The brain needs progressive difficulty to stay engaged. Small increases in challenge keep learning active. Eliminating these mistakes does not require a radical change. It requires awareness. When high performance begins to become constant, a new challenge arises. Maintaining that level without turning the process into a psychological burden. Many people sabotage their own performance just when they start to evolve because they begin to demand too much from themselves. The brain perceives this change and starts to associate high performance again with pressure and fear of making mistakes. A common mistake at this stage is treating each session as a definitive test. If you perform less on a given day, frustration appears immediately. This breaks the continuity. Sustainable high performance is not about being at the maximum all the time. It's about maintaining a high standard on average. Another saboteur is losing the sense of purpose. When studying becomes just mechanical repetition, the brain starts to disengage. To maintain engagement, it is necessary to constantly remember why that effort exists. Not in an exaggerated emotional way, but as a clear direction. There is also the risk of neglecting small victories. When the brain only recognizes big results, it loses motivation in the process. Celebrating consistency, maintained focus, and clean execution reinforces the positive performance cycle. If you've ever felt that you started well and then lost performance due to excessive pressure, take a moment to like the video now. This helps this content reach more people who want to maintain high performance without self-sabotaging. In the next step, we will show how to transform high academic performance into identity, making the brain naturally and continuously seek this level of delivery. When high academic performance ceases to be a conscious effort and begins to repeat frequently, the brain enters a new phase. He begins to integrate this behavior into his identity. You are no longer trying to perform well. You are someone who performs well. This change is profound because the brain seeks coherence between who you believe you are and what you do every day. Neuroscience shows that behaviors linked to identity require less energy to maintain. When studying with focus, delivering results, and maintaining discipline are part of who you are, skipping a session generates internal discomfort. Not out of guilt, but out of inconsistency. The brain prefers to maintain the pattern rather than break it. To reinforce this identity, it is important to make performance visible to oneself. Not as external comparison, but as internal proof of consistency. Tracking productive days, well-executed blocks, and stable weeks shows the brain that that level of delivery is real and recurring. Another essential factor is to protect this pattern. Avoid environments that sabotage focus, reduce stimuli that drain attention, and do not negotiate performance with constant distractions. Each choice reinforces or weakens the identity being built. Over time, something changes silently. High performance stops seeming extraordinary. It becomes the norm. The brain starts to seek this state because it represents control, clarity, and internal security. In the next step, we will transform all of this into a simple and practical system to maintain high academic performance in the long term, without burnout and without relying on constant motivation. Maintaining a brain addicted to high academic performance requires a simple system, but one that is rigorously protected. The first point is to set a minimum daily delivery standard. Not the maximum possible, but the minimum acceptable. This standard creates stability. Even on difficult days, you maintain the baseline level. The brain learns that performing well does not depend on ideal conditions. Another essential point is to clearly separate execution days from adjustment days. On execution days, you do. On adjustment days, you analyze, correct, and improve the system. Mixing the two creates mental confusion. The brain performs better when it knows whether it is in action mode or reflection mode. It is also important to associate high performance with a sense of control, not sacrifice. Having clarity about what will be done, how long it will last, and when it will end reduces resistance. The brain likes effort with clear boundaries. To maintain this level in the long term, you need to constantly review the challenge. When everything becomes too easy, interest wanes. When it gets too difficult, anxiety rises. Adjusting the difficulty keeps the brain engaged and prevents stagnation. Another critical factor is protecting rest. High performance cannot be maintained in an exhausted system. Sleep, breaks, and recovery are not rewards. They are part of the method. The brain only delivers at a high level when it knows there will be recovery. When this system is well adjusted, performance stops being something you force. It is maintained because the brain understands that this pattern generates more benefits than costs. In the end, getting the brain addicted to high academic performance is not about constant pressure, fear of making mistakes, or living in a state of constant demand. It's about teaching the brain to recognize high performance as something safe, rewarding, and part of who you are. When this happens, performing well stops being the exception and becomes the norm. Most people try to achieve high performance by pushing themselves to the limit. It works for a while, but it breaks down in the long run. Those who build real performance do the opposite. Creates structure, respects rhythm, transforms daily progress into reward, and protects one's own energy. The brain learns that delivering at a high level generates control, clarity, and stability. Over time, something silent happens. You no longer need to convince yourself to study well. You don't need to motivate yourself every day. Action comes before emotion. The brain already knows that this is the most efficient path. And when this becomes established, discipline stops being a problem. If this video helped you see academic high performance in a smarter and more sustainable way, subscribe to the channel. Here, the focus is on deep productivity, study psychology, and scientific methods to achieve above-average results without destroying yourself in the process. Remember this. High performance is not extreme intensity. It's well-structured consistency. When the brain gets addicted to performing well, you not only improve your grades. You develop a skill that extends to every area of life. And this skill, when well cultivated, becomes a silent advantage that few have, but everyone would like to have.